Hello, Caren. Thank you for taking some time aside of your fantastic exhibition here. Can you tell me where the inspiration came behind the exhibition that you've got?
Yes, well, it actually happened 4 years ago, and I've been making this work for 4 years. And I made this kitchen installation about women and dieting. And at the end of the show, people saying, "What are you doing next? What are you doing?" And I said, "I know I'm definitely not doing anything about women and bodies and dieting and food." And then a young girl, student, contacted me after the show, and she said that she'd had an eating disorder for 8 years, and she saw the work, the kitchen, and it made her want to get better. She was only 17 at the time, and we were in contact, and I was inspired by her story, and eventually, after a few conversations, I made an artwork about her condition. And I couldn't just rest listening to her story. I had to know more. I couldn't just say this is her story. I had to do the research, because all of my work is research led. And then I just got hooked. I don't know. I'm a bit of a control freak, so I was dealing with an issue where there's so much control. The person with an eating disorder thinks they're controlling everything, but eventually the eating disorder controls them. So it started this whole role of 4 years of making artworks about eating disorders.
Could you tell me about the doll's house?
The doll's house is you come in, and I've seen people come into the show and they look over and they go, "Oh, a doll's house," and they come rushing up and they want to look at it, and then they sort of realise that things aren't as they seem, and because the doll's house is about scale, and at the back there are mirrors, so if you look in the mirror you can see yourself, and you look a lot bigger because you're looking into this enclosed space, and there's someone with an eating disorder will perceive themselves as being much bigger than they actually are. But then you look closer, and there are things in the doll's house which are out full size in the installation, like the little fluffy pink slippers, and then there's a coat and a satchel on a hook. There's even a replica of the doll's house itself in miniature, and within that doll's house there's another doll's house, because it's this scale thing going on. And then there's one room it has the hospital bed and the locker, and these things are the full-size furniture in the installation. And one particular room is very poignant because it's of a young woman who didn't survive a very complex eating disorder, and I've dedicated that room to her. And it's an art room, and there's an image I shrunk down to a miniature 1/12 scale, a self-portrait she did, a magnificent piece. I saw it in reality, and that room is very, very special, along with the quilt, the full-size quilt that's in the installation, which relate to this young woman. And there is a little bit of dark humour in the piece, and it's the clean eating room, because there's this new fad, or not necessarily very new, but a recent fad about clean eating diets. And if you look into that room, on the table there's all this beautiful chopped up food and very fresh, clean food that's being scrubbed with tiny bottles of chemicals and scrubbing brushes. And then you look to the back, and there in the dishwasher there's all these little bits of food, fresh, clean food.
Your quilt, it's covered in messages, images. Do you collect those as part of your research, or do people provide you as part of those stories that they've got to relate to you?
Well, it's a bit of both. It's a lot came from Twitter, actually, because there's some people with eating disorders. I was looking at one person in particular who had a huge number of followers, and as many as someone famous might have, and then she's getting loads of likes on things she's said, or she retweets things that other people have said, and they're getting more likes than is healthy, really. So a lot came from there. A lot came from I read a lot of people's autobiographies, which were very touching and moving. But I was working on those for about 2 years, really, and hand stitching them all, and the motifs. as well.
And your hand stitching, it's so tiny. How do you work? What's your cloth?
I just use a plain cotton cloth and silk threads, but I've been doing it for such a long time, it's just like a natural process. It's just part of me, and I find it quite a very calming, relaxing process. Even if what I'm doing is quite harrowing, and what I stitch is quite harrowing, it's still, there's a calm with the needle and the thread, which is probably essential because
of the context of the work.
Yeah, exactly. Otherwise it can be too emotional, and I have to step back from it.
And do you work under a lens?
I use a lens, of course, a lens and a light. And these days, because I've been doing this for a long time, I wear glasses as well. I have some specs.
And from a technical point of view, what sort of thread do you use and what needle?
I use, usually I use a size 10 needle, because I've used finer ones, but they bend so quickly that it just irritates me, and I just go through too many. So I manage with a size 10, and I use very fine silk threads. Usually.
Very fine.
Sometimes I use a thicker thread, but they're always silk.
Yeah.
Okay.
And what kind of feedback have you actually had from the work that you've shown today?
Over the last 4 years.
4 days. It feels like 4 years. It's been heavy.
It has. Over the last 4 days, it's been absolutely overwhelming. The people, it's just been over emotional. There's been tears and hugs and stories, and people have written in the diary, which I left there, and I didn't know whether people would write in, but there have been some really incredible things going on, and hopefully some people seem to have been helped in some way.
And you've been handing out literature as well, haven't you?
I did hand out some literature from BEAT, British Eating Disorder Charity. It's the UK charity for eating disorders. And I've had to give out, I ran out of cards on the first day, which was quite something. And today I just had to write down the name of it to give to someone whose son was suffering. So it's quite incredible, actually, because people are saying, oh God, that's what I say to them, this is what I say, and maybe I need to step back, and maybe a professional needs to come in and deal with this. Or somebody said that she was going to have counselling after we talked, and she was in a terrible state because she was being bullied and about her weight. And so many stories, so many people, very personal, very touching, and you didn't have to have an eating disorder. People got what they wanted from it.
If anybody wants to find any more information about your work, where could they find it?
Well, they can find it on my website, www.caren with a C, C-A-R-E-N, Garfen, G-A-R, F for Freddie, E-N.com.
Thank you very much for your time.